No amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that is going to happen. You see, I remember when I was younger, I was more anxious than I am now. You see, I remember when I was in school, I used to get quite anxious about things. You know, when there was a test coming up, when there was one of these, how do you say it in English? When the teachers randomly call someone up and he or she has to respond and then he will get a grade. How do you say that? I don't know. I don't know the English word. You can tell me if you want to. But I remember I was pretty anxious at those moments, and it was pretty scary. You know, I got the sweat, I got the chilly feeling up the spine, and the hollow feeling in my stomach, and all of that thing. And yeah, I used to get quite anxious. But nowadays things have gotten better. I still get anxious. Don't get me wrong. I'm still anxious quite sometimes, but it's different. It's different. I've learned some things and it's different now. So I want to share those things with you, the things that have helped me, and hopefully it will help you also to not be that anxious about things. And let me just introduce myself. My name is Nagodin and I make videos about things I'm interested in, about things I'm learning, things I'm reading about. Nowadays I'm interested in Eastern philosophies. I make videos about it also. And I also make videos about climbing. So hope you enjoy. So let's get right into it. I wrote some bullet ideas here, bullet points, all of that. I'll probably leave it in the description if you want to read it also. So first I want to talk about some Stoic ideas, some ideas from Stoicism. You probably have heard it. It has become very popular, mostly through Ryan Holiday's books. Great books, highly recommend them. Ryan Holiday. But you see, the main idea in Stoicism is what is in your control and what is outside of your control. Do not focus on what's outside of your control, focus on what's in your control. You probably have this already, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Basically, other people's opinions, the weather, what will happen in the future, basically. It's all out of your control. Almost everything is out of your control. You do have some control over what you think about things, your opinions about things, your actions, your judgments, what you say, and your behavior. Most of these are in your control. Focus on those. That's basically the main idea of Stoicism. And it's about, you see, letting go of control, letting go of trying to control everything and grasping so tightly. That is really anxiety now, isn't it? Grabbing so tightly onto something, you know, when I'm trying to paint something, you see, and I want to make sure that it goes on a straight line. If I don't trust myself, and I have to hold my hands and guide it and hold it tightly, it won't go straight. It will go all jiggly and all of that. So you see, anxiety is about mistrusting yourself, mistrusting the nature around you, and mistrust in the way the things go. This is where the Taoists agree. The Taoist philosophy, Taoism, the Chinese philosophy. You see, they also say that nature, your own nature, and the nature around you is something that you have to trust. You have to trust in it. It's not always trustworthy. It may let you down sometimes. But what is the alternative? It's anxiety. It's Big Brother. It's God. And who's going to guard the guard and all sorts of regulations and all of that. You see, let's not get into this right. Basically, it's about letting go of trying to control everything and flowing with the Tao, as the Taoists say. Flowing with the way of things, flowing with the course of things, and not interfering, not using force, not forcing things, but going with the flow. Basically, another Taoist idea of Wu Wei, not forcing. That's the translation I like. If you're interested about Taoism, I made a whole series about it. It's about, in total, 4 episodes, about 1.5 hours long. Great, highly recommend it. Basically, let go of trying to control everything you can't. The next thing is, you see, another Stoic idea that I wanted to mention is, you see, Marcus Aurelius said this, that it is not the things themselves that hurt you, but it is your judgment of them that hurts your soul. And this is just true. I mean, it is not outside things that hurt you, but your opinions about it, your judgments about it. You see, it's a great demonstration of this is, are you mad or angry or sad about the dollar that you lost that you don't know about? See, it doesn't even bother you, that you don't even know about it. It is your judgment that hurt you. I mean, maybe this wasn't the best example, but the point is, it's your opinion, your judgment that hurts you, not the thing itself. It's the same with anxiety. It's all in your mind. It's all your thoughts. And we'll get more into that later. So you see, these has helped me a lot. Letting go of trying to control everything. And another thing is not believing every thought that I have. One of the books that I read recently, let me just grab it. This book right here, the No Self, No Problem workbook by Chris Neuber. It talks about neuroscience and how it relates to Buddhist ideas. And you see, it's very interesting, this book. It talks about the right and the left brain. How our left side of our brain is the interpreter, is the storyteller. That's where the language area basically is. And our thoughts, you see, they are put in language. And they are not a representation of reality. Our thoughts do not represent reality. Our thoughts are a biased, distorted image of reality, not reality itself. This is such a crucial thing to understand. Your thoughts are not true. Not always. Most of the time, not true. They are biased. And they are not going to solve your problems. Most of the time. But they are the source of your problems. Your thoughts, all that chattering in your mind. Most of the time, they're the source of your problem. You see, we label everything around us. We say this is good or bad, this or that, categorization, all of that thing. But the outside things are just as they are. They are either good or bad. So question your thoughts. Put them under the light. You see, step back a little bit. Question them, question them, question them. Take a step back. Such a great thing. This has helped me a lot. Not believe everything that you think and look at things from another perspective. Sounds very simple. Sometimes it's very hard to do, but trust me, it helps a lot. So getting on to the other idea. You see, the next idea is probably one of the most important ones that has helped me a lot. And it's actually quite paradoxical. Quite, how do you say it? It goes against your logic. And it is not resisting anxiety, not fighting against it, not suppressing it, not pushing it down, but feeling it completely. When you're anxious, just being anxious. You have probably experienced this. When you're anxious about something, you're worrying about something, and then someone comes along and says to you, "Oh, come on now, don't worry about that. Don't be anxious. There's nothing to be anxious about." But does that actually help? No. It probably makes things even worse. Because you see, if you resist anxiety, if you push it down, it leads to a vicious cycle. Because what happens when you just spontaneously, suddenly get anxious about something? If you try to push it down, and if you have it in your mind that you ought not to be anxious, then you will start worrying about being worried, and you'll be anxious about being anxious. And oh no, then you'll be anxious about the fact that you're being anxious about being anxious, and so on. You're trapped, you're stuck, you're in a vicious cycle. But you see, when you accept it, when you accept the fact that you're just anxious, that's it, you're just anxious, and you feel it completely. You feel the concrete reality of that experience, what you're actually feeling, that hollow feeling in your stomach, the tension in your palms, the chilly feeling of the spine. When you just feel that, and when you realize that that's all that's the matter with you, that's it, those feelings. That's the worst that life can do to you at that moment. That hollow feeling and all of that. When you realize that, it has the opposite effect. Most of the time you see, when you're willing to be anxious, when you're anxious, just be anxious. It often makes it unnecessary to do so. It's just the same with pain. When you're in pain, cry. You see, when you're anxious, just be anxious. Respond in a natural way, because you see, most of the time, a natural response to a given situation, to pain for example, can be therapeutic, can be healing. When you're in pain, crying, screaming. But when we resist it, it hurts us even deeper. You can imagine when a fish or you get caught in a hook, you're caught. Now what do? If you try to fight it and get out of that thing, it will just get deeper into you. You have to move with it, and it won't hurt. Same principle. So there's a quote from Alan Watts. One is a great deal less anxious if one feels perfectly free to be anxious. And the same may be said of guilt. So I think that this is very important. When you're anxious, just be anxious. Don't try to push it down. Don't try to fight against it. Don't say, oh my god, I'm anxious. No. Just feel it completely. Because you see, as we said, you get this hollow feeling in your stomach and all of that. See, the same feeling that you get, the same hollow feeling, the same chilly feeling of the spine, when you have a feeling of the opposite. When you got the thrills of the light, when you're excited. Same feelings. What a difference does the context makes. What a difference it makes. You see, it's about forgetting about the context and facing the fact, facing the feeling, facing the concrete reality, this moment right now, and feeling anxiety as if it were the only thing that you had to do in this whole world. Now, just as a side note here, this just came into my mind before I get on to the next topic. I actually found this out recently, and it's so interesting that when you think about future events that are painful, that maybe you're anxious about something, so, something bad happening in the future, you will actually feel pain. Like how crazy that is. You will feel pain. Sadly, this doesn't happen with good things. You won't feel pleasure when you think about good things in the future. But you will feel pain, discomfort, when you're thinking about some of those things, some bad things happening in the future. How interesting that is. And that's just a side note. Another side note, popped into my mind, you see. Most of the things that you're worried about, that you're anxious about, don't happen. Like, most of them do not happen. And you're going through that pain more than you should. I mean, even if that does happen, why go through that pain beforehand? And Seneca said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How true that is. Because you see, in your imagination, you're thinking through 100 different outcomes. 100. But in reality, only one of them will happen. So you're suffering, as we said, you feel that pain in your body when you're thinking about those bad things. You're suffering 100 of those outcomes. When in reality, when you get to that point, you should only suffer one of them. If that bad thing does happen. So it's so interesting. Even isn't this interesting? I just find it really interesting. So what you could do is write down your worry list. What are you worrying right now? Write down 10 things that you're anxious about, and look back at it a month after now and see how many of them actually came true. Guarantee you, most of them won't come true. So getting on to the next point. And you see, this actually helped me a lot. When I first heard this, let me tell you, it's a Taoist farm. It's a Taoist story about a farmer. And when I first heard it, it was like, wow. It's a great story. It's about. I'm just going to tell you the story, and I'll talk about it later. See, there was once a Chinese farmer who lost his horse. It just ran away. The horse ran away, he lost his horse. And then the neighbors came around and told the Chinese farmer, this is such a bad luck, I'm so sorry that your horse ran away, it was a great treasure for the family. They could use it to work and all of that. I'm so sorry that their horse ran away. This is bad luck. And the farmer said, well, maybe it is, don't judge so fast. And the next day, you see, the horse that ran away came back with 5 other wild horses. And you see, the neighbors came around and told the farmer, this is such a great luck, good fortune, 5 more horses. And then the farmer said, well, maybe it is. We don't know, we'll see. And you see, a week later, when the Chinese farmer's son was trying to tame one of these horses, and he was riding on his back, the horse threw him off, he fell off and broke his leg. And then the neighbors came around and told the Chinese farmer, oh, this is such a bad luck. What will happen? How will he be able to work right now? This is such misfortune. And then the Chinese farmer said, maybe it is, maybe it's not. We'll see. And you see, 1 week later, The Emperor of China declared war on a neighboring nation. The enrolling soldiers came around, the Chinese farmer, the guys that enrolled to the army came around, and they looked at the Chinese farmer's son. They saw that he was disabled, he couldn't fight, so they couldn't take him to the army. And countless men died in that war. But the Chinese farmer's son didn't die because of his broken leg. So the neighbors came around and they told the Chinese farmer, this is great news, great fortune. And the Chinese farmer said, well, maybe it is, maybe it's not, we'll see. So you see, it's a great story about the fact that you just never know if what's happening to you right now is good or bad. You never know. I mean, you probably had this experience now, didn't you? Where you thought something happened to you, and you thought that this was awful, the worst thing that could have ever happened to you. And then as time went on, you realize that you're actually grateful that that thing happened, and you wouldn't want it any other way. Isn't this interesting? You never know. There are just too many variables when it comes to the future. Too many things you can't consider. If something happens, it's going to be good or bad. You see, that Chinese farmer, he knew to go with the course of things, to go with the flow of things, as you said before, to go with the Tao, not resist it, not fight against it. And you see, as we said, this is the idea of Wu Wei, of not forcing. Taoist series, check it out. I'm just kidding. So you see, it's the same with also making decisions. You never know if a decision that you made is good or bad. Because how do you know if a decision that you made is good or bad? Based on the outcome. But the outcome, looking at it for how long in the future. You see, if you look at your decision, 1 week from now, it might be a great decision that you made. 1 month from now, you realize, shit, this was a bad decision that you made. A year from now, great decision actually, I changed my mind. 10 years from now, man, I shouldn't have done that. Worst decision that I ever made. So now what? Is it a good or a bad decision? You just don't know. Because the future holds too many variables. You don't know what will come into play. So this idea and this story actually helped me a lot. That you just don't know. I mean, just chill out. Everything is out of your control. Chill. You don't know whether this happened to you, whether this is good or bad. So keep that Chinese farmer in your mind when you're anxious. Now you see the next story, not next story, but that will be a great story also. The next thing is the fact that you don't want things to go your way all of the time. This is a very interesting story, thought you see. But imagine if everything went the way that you wanted to. Everything. Things would get terribly boring. I mean, just think about it. If you never lost, if you always won, you always got what you want, things would get so boring after some time. And you see, to illustrate this, that you don't want things to always go your way. Let me just tell you a great story. It sounds like a thought exercise. You could also say that. I heard it from Alan Watts. Amazing. Now imagine that when you went to sleep, you could dream any dream that you want. Anything. It's totally in your control. And you could dream for any amount of clock time. You could dream for 70 years, for 100 years, 1,000 years in one night. Any dream that you want. Now then, what would you dream of? What would you do? I mean, first, I would imagine that you would dream your wildest dreams, fulfilling all of your wishes and dreams and aspirations. And also, you see, you could make the dreams seem as real as possible, so you wouldn't know that you're dreaming. So you would go out, fulfilling all of your pleasures and all great adventures and also parties and orgies and all of that stuff. And after about a month of every single night, of 70 years of dreaming of all sorts of pleasures, even thousands of years of dreaming those pleasures, you will get bored with it. Because there's a limit to pleasure. You will get bored. And you will say, you wake up one day and say to yourself, whew, man, that was a blast. But now, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's have a dream It is not totally under my control. Let's have a surprise. So you go in there and you arrange your dream in a certain way that there will be certain elements that are not under your control, that will surprise you. So you see, you go in there and then you have these great adventures, saving the princess, not knowing whether or not you'll succeed. And then you wake up and you say to yourself, "Whew, that was a close one. Let's do it again." And then you go out, making further and further more gambles, you see, going further and further out, taking more chances. Then you would go out, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. You would get in these crazy situations, you see. You would arrange it in a certain way that you will forget the fact that you're dreaming. And so that when you wake up, it will be a great relief. And because of this, you see, you will also get into some nightmares, some bad dreams. You will dream about, getting lost in the forest, being eaten alive by a shark. You would dream about, being in poverty, going to war, all of that stuff. But how good it will be when you wake up, the contrast. So then you see, you would go further and further out, making more gambles, and making things go more and more out of your control. And you would keep on doing that. Now you see, how do you know that you're not already doing this? You see, if you had the ability to dream any dream that you want, basically you have everything under your total control, you would end up, one of your dreams would be you right now watching this video about me talking about anxiety. Now, isn't that interesting? If you could have anything that you want, you would end up where you are right now. Because what we truly want is a surprise. I mean, if you think about it, do we really know what we want? I mean, this is one of the hardest questions. What do you want? What do you desire? It's hard to say. So you see, this story also helped me a lot. That if I had anything that I want, I would be right here, right now. And that I don't want things to always go my way. Because you see, this is the fun of the game. That you don't know what's going to happen. You see, when grandmasters are playing chess, and they both see that there is a checkmate in 5 moves, they will shake hands and stop them. Because it's not worth it. You already know what's going to happen. So in the same way, when you know the outcome of a cards game, you shuffle the deck and play again. So isn't this interesting? You see, the fun of the game is to get lost in it, to have this surprise element to it, that you don't know what's going to happen, and everything might go to hell. That is the fun of the game. But at the same time, you gotta look to it and not take it seriously. And this brings me to the next point, which is contemplating your own immortality, contemplating death, thinking about your own death. This is such a great thing, and we really often forget to do this, and get lost in everyday tasks and duties and silly things and trivial things, really. Get angry about little things. But when we think about our own death, it brings us out of that. It allows us to look at things from a broader perspective. And you see, there's a great quote from Marcus Aurelius. If you don't know, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. He was one of the 5 great emperors of Rome. He was one of the Stoics. And he used to write in his journal to himself. And this is one of the things that he wrote. Think of the life you have lived until now as over and as a dead man. See what's left as a bonus, and live it according to nature. Love the hand that fate deals you, and play it as your own. For what could be more fitting? Now isn't this interesting? That the Emperor of Rome, he had everything that he could even imagine. Everything that he wanted. And he wrote things like this to himself. It's very interesting. I highly recommend to look into Marcus Aurelius. So you see, consider yourself as already dead. Because there is, I think, a Turkish saying that he who sleeps on the floor will not fall out of bed. So then, think of yourself as dead. That you're dead. I mean, that is reality. after 100 years, you will just be a handful of dust. And that's for real. Now act on that reality. Think of your own mortality. Because when you face mortality, when you do not resist it, as we said with anxiety, it makes you alive. You come back even more alive, with more courage, with more energy, because you're not anxious all the time of what's going to happen. Because you know that you're going to die and you have that in your mind. And that also makes you realize that none of this is really serious. That you don't have to take all this seriously for 1 second. That doesn't mean, going out and doing all sorts of crazy things. It's about not being serious, but about being sincere. Going at the world, going at life, and living life wholeheartedly. With your whole heart, with your whole being. But not being serious about it. Just like playing a game, you see. It's about, getting lost in the game. Living the game, like playing the game. Being present, fully there. But not taking it seriously. When you're playing cards. Or any kind of game. And, someone who takes it too seriously, he's never good to play with. He's just annoying. He gets angry and starts shouting, and I must win. I must win this game. I must triumph over that. I must live. But you see, when you say that you must live, that you must love, that you must do something, you see, living is a spontaneous action. And if you force it to do it, then it will stop happening altogether. You see, when you look at a tree, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't say to himself that I must go on living. It just does it playfully, with a playful nature. And that's one of the secrets of life. Looking at whatever you're doing, whatever activity that you're doing, being completely engaged in it, and not looking at it as work, but regarding it as play. If you're interested more about this, Alan Watts made a great video about it. Work as play, that's what it's called. I leave a link to it in the description. Great video. So that was basically it. These are the things that helped me a lot to be less anxious, and some of my basic outlooks on life. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment. And if you're interested, I'm doing free one-on-one calls. You can send me an email. We can have a talk, basically. We can chat, even in the description. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. And hope you enjoyed, yeah. So you can leave a comment if you have any questions. If you think what I said was stupid, if you have any thoughts, leave a comment in the description. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and goodbye.